What?
It's time now for My Two Favorite Librarians. Brought to you by Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.
Hi, this is My Two Favorite Librarians. I'm Denise Corey.
I'm Chantel Taylor, and today we're talking about Heritage Day, and this year's recognized
Community
is Africville.
Yeah. So Heritage Day is a relatively new holiday, like 2015?
We think, we're Googling and trying to figure it out. So we think Viola Desmond was the first honoree.
You're not supposed to tell them that we Google things. They're supposed to think we're really smart.
It's all lies.
No, we're really, really smart. We know everything. We don't just Google things.
I don't want to go out into the world with people thinking that of me.
So because today is Heritage Day, we're actually pre-recording this and the library is closed. And I hope you are spending the day doing awesome things with your friends and or family.
So 2020 marks the 10th anniversary of the Africville Apology. And apparently I was doing research. They rebuilt the church in Africville in, I believe, the early 2000s. And I think in 2012, they started having Christmas services there again.
And it's a bit of a museum.
Yes.
Yeah.
It may have been designated a historic site, but people camp there and they often have family reunions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a park there, Seaview Park.
So Africville, if you're not familiar with it, is a section of Halifax, but before it was a separate community from Halifax, and then Halifax absorbed it. It started to be settled in the 1700s by slaves and by people who were brought up into Canada to escape wars in the United States. People who lived there bought their land in the 1800s, so they owned that land.
They did.
Which was not something I was aware of before I started doing the reading for this. And they paid taxes to Halifax when they became part of the Halifax community.
Received no services in return.
None of the services. Paid the taxes, didn't get a road paved. They didn't have a school there. They had a school. They had their own school. They didn't have a public school there supported by the city until the late 30s, early 40s. And then Halifax just dumped all of their crap there, like quite literally. Anything in the town that they didn't want.
There were all sorts of things that they just kept. There was a prison there at one time.
There was an infectious hospital.
Yep.
There was, like I said, there was a
waste.
night soil disposal. There was a garbage dump that they put there in the late 40s because council members argued that the people of Fairview didn't deserve a dump. So apparently the people of Africville did. Like, it's just, it's so terrible and maddening and awful to read this stuff and just think, like, they were treated so badly. And then their land was just taken.
Well, and not only taken, but they were removed from their homes with promises of compensation and better housing. And I'm putting better in quoting marks. Their houses, some people, and I imagine a lot of people, they weren't given very much notice. So they may have, like, bulldozers would come and in an hour you had to completely strip your home. So people would be leaving with whatever they could carry. I read that a man came home from the hospital and his house was gone.
Yeah.
You were saying that they bulldozed the church in the middle of the night. So there wasn't really much compensation. Housing was, of course, not better. It was slum housing. It was terrible.
A lot of what they had done was just break families up, because if you owned your land and you had houses nearby each other, you wouldn't necessarily find that because they just moved people out into public housing or what have you. They didn't care if they kept families together, and
they weren't given enough money to try and buy a house, and they went from living in a community to living in a city, which is different costs, and being displaced from the people that were their families.
Yeah. It's a really terrible part of our history, but I think it's really important that people learn about it. So here are some resources. Obviously, if you go into the library's catalog, which you can find from our webpage,
www.cumberlandpubliclibraries.ca.
You can search for Africville, and you'll find things that are both nonfiction and fiction. So you can get stories, or you can get like real research historic items. I also found really good resources on the Halifax Public Libraries.
I was going to say, Halifax will have a much better collection of Africville resources than we do.
Halifax, on their website, they have some links to some videos, National Film Board videos, and they have a much larger collection. And they also have just information on their site written up so you can read about some of the things that Chantel and I have been talking about.
And we've just really skimmed over the history.
Yeah, that's just like the briefest, tiniest overview. Often I think in Canada, we look at ourselves and we say, well, we're better than our American neighbors because, you know, they had slavery and blah, blah, blah. Well, we're not. We've done a lot of terrible things as well. And it's really important that you read about your history so you don't repeat your history.
I also heard a lot of complaints when it was announced that Africville was this year's Heritage Day, that it wasn't really a provincial thing, that not many people outside of Halifax would know. And I thought,
well, but it speaks to the mistreatment of African Nova Scotians,
which everybody in the province should know about.
And it's just focused on one community. But realistically, if you look in every community in Nova Scotia, African Nova Scotians have been mistreated because racism is real and terrible, and it's something we have to work against all the time. So right now, I am reading a book called Africaville by Jeffrey Colvin. So Jeffrey Colvin is actually an American, and this is a fictional story about Africville. And he made a statement that Africaville is not a strict retelling of the story of the Nova Scotia community, but an exploration of the themes of struggle, loss, and family that are part of its legacy. And it's about 3 generations of the Seabolt family. And so they live in Africville during, well, it starts just after the Halifax explosion, and right now the chunk I'm reading is in the 1930s, and then the book will continue on through the 60s and into the 1980s. So I'm really interested in what's going to happen with this family over the years. They also talk about Halifax back in the early 1900s sending people away. They had ships for their African Nova Scotian residents to go back to Africa, and these ships sank, and then the people were never heard from again.
Oh God, it's like The Handmaid's Tale.
It's a true thing that happened, but I'm reading a fictional account because sometimes I find you get a better understanding or a deeper understanding of things when you read it through a fictional account. Is that just me?
Did that really happen?
The ship sinking? Yeah.
I've never, oh God.
Yeah, now you're going to have to go read about that. So, why don't we talk about what's happening at the library? I know, this was pretty bleak and hard, but history is pretty bleak and hard.
So we're closed. I know Denise said it off the top, but we're closed today, Monday, February 17th for Heritage Day, where we should all be, much like Remembrance Day, thinking about other people, not having fun with our friends.
Okay. I won't.
Tomorrow, Amherst will be having a Frozen Frenzy from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. So if you're a friend of Anna and Elsa, come on in. And I don't know if Julie's making reindeer antlers or not.
I want reindeer antlers.
You can do it. There's a teen anime club in Oxford on February 19th, and there's a Parsboro Teen Night February 21st.
Yeah, and on the Parsboro Teen Night, there is going to be pizza and snacks.
I always have snacks, but pizza's very fun.
It's important to know that there will be pizza and snacks. That's only for teens. Sorry. So, the other thing is, every single Wednesday, except between Christmas and New Year's, we, along with Maggie's Place, host story time called Once Upon a Time at the Forefathers Library in Amherst. It's for ages 0 to 5.
There's songs that will stick in your head all day. There's stories, and there's a snack.
Yes. You should tell them our socials.
You can find all our events and more information on our website, www.cumberlandpubliclibraries.ca. You can follow the library on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
What are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're talking about freedom to read.
Oh, next week we're going to talk about censorship. Wow, that should be lighthearted. See you next week.
My 2 Favorite Librarians. Brought to you by Copper Tree Boutique in Dales Grand Market, located in beautiful, historic downtown Amherst.